I've been a truck driver for over a decade now, and in all those years, I've never strayed from my usual route. Familiar roads, familiar stops. I knew every twist and turn like the back of my hand. But tonight was different. I wasn't in a hurry to make my delivery, so I thought, why not take a different route? See some new scenery, maybe break up the monotony a bit. I turned on my GPS to ensure I'd still end up at my destination, and then I veered off the beaten path. After a couple of hours of driving through winding roads and dense woods, I came across a small, rural town. It was the kind of place you'd miss if you blinked. Tiny houses, dirt roads, and an eerie quiet that hung in the air like a fog. Except, tonight, it wasn't quiet. There were people outside, lots of them. Tribe people, from the look of it, gathered in groups, chatting, laughing, even though it was already close to 11 p.m. It looked like some kind of celebration, the air thick with the scent of grilled meat and smoke. As I slowed down to take it all in, one of the men by the road waved at me, a wide smile on his face. Without really thinking, I smiled back and pulled over. The guy walked up to my truck, and as soon as I rolled down the window, he invited me to join the festivities. I asked him what the occasion was, and he said it was the birthday of their leader. I wasn't in any rush, so I figured, why not? It'd be a change of pace from the usual lonely truck stops. I got out of my truck and followed him into the heart of the gathering. As soon as I stepped into the circle of flickering firelight, I felt their eyes on me. It was that feeling you get when you're the outsider, the newcomer, but I smiled at them anyway. The guy who invited me, his name was James, led me to a seat near the fire. Before we could even start a conversation, another man came up to James and whispered something in his ear. He apologized and said he had to take care of something real quick, leaving me to sit and wait for the food. It wasn't long before another man approached me with a plate piled high with meat. I didn't recognize what kind of meat it was, but it smelled good, and I was hungry. The guy had already walked away before I could ask, so I took a small bite. It tasted like beef, tender and juicy, and I found myself going back for more. But just as I was about to take another bite, I noticed James out of the corner of my eye. He was dragging someone, towards a wooden shed a little ways off from the main gathering. My curiosity got the better of me, and I set the plate down, deciding to check it out. I peeked through a small hole in the shed's wall, and what I saw made my blood run cold. The man James was dragging was unconscious, his body limp as a rag doll. I thought maybe he needed help, and I even considered grabbing my first aid kit from the truck. But then, I saw another man inside the shed, stripping the unconscious man of his watch and shoes. Another guy started undressing him entirely, and that's when I knew something was seriously wrong. My heart was pounding as I backed away from the shed. As I turned around, my eyes caught sight of a table in the corner, piled high with accessories, watches, bracelets, ribbons, hats, you name it. Underneath were heaps of shoes, all different sizes and styles, heels, boots, sneakers, slippers, and nearby, a drum overflowed with clothes. I could barely breathe. My gut told me to get out of there, fast, but I didn't want to raise any alarms. I walked back to my seat, trying to act normal, but my mind was racing. I couldn't stop thinking about the unconscious man and those piles of belongings. Before I could even stand up to leave, James returned, sitting down next to me with a friendly grin. He asked if I liked the food, and I forced myself to smile and nod. But he must have sensed something was off, because he leaned in a little closer and asked if anything was wrong, said I seemed nervous. I knew I couldn't tell him the truth, so I lied. I told him I had an upset stomach and needed to use the bathroom. He didn't seem suspicious, just pointed me toward a grassy area on the edge of the gathering where they, handled their business. I told him I'd be right back, and he nodded, seemingly convinced. As soon as I was out of sight, I crouched low and started crawling through the tall grass, making my way toward my truck. My heart was pounding in my chest, my ears straining to pick up any sound of footsteps behind me. When I was just a few feet away from my truck, I bolted for it, running as fast as I could. But as I reached for the door, I froze. Parked right next to my rig was another truck. It looked eerily familiar, and then it hit me. This must have belonged to the man I saw in the shed. Panic surged through me, and that's when I heard it. The sound of footsteps, running, getting closer. I didn't look back. I jumped into my truck, slammed the door shut, and fired up the engine. In my rearview mirror, I saw them, 8 men, including James, sprinting toward me. My hands were shaking as I threw the truck into gear and floored it. The tires screeched on the dirt road, and I sped out of that town like a bat out of hell. I didn't stop driving until the town was miles behind me, the faint glow of their fires long gone in the distance. My heart was still racing, and the taste of that meat lingered in my mouth, now sour and wrong. I don't know what that place was, or what they planned to do with me if I had stayed longer, but I know one thing for sure. I'm never taking an unfamiliar route again.